Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Digitizing Your Operational Excellence System. So some of you have been visiting us at Hannover Messe a couple of weeks ago and wanted to see this again. Some of you wanted to bring colleagues. So thanks for bringing your colleagues to this webinar as well. And we also have a couple of other attendees who just discovered us on LinkedIn. So thanks again, everyone, for taking the time through this for this tour of iObeya. With me today are Christoph Pešić and Olav Maassen. They are all or both experts in our product and have a lot of experience in operational excellence and also on the shop floor. So very keen to get started. What's important is that you get your questions answered. So if you should have any questions that come up, please put them into the respective field in the channel that you're using. We're actually using different channels today, both LinkedIn and YouTube for this webinar. So feel free to post your question. And at the end, we will go through and answer those if possible. All right, I'll start with looking at the backlog for today's webinar. We will talk about OBEYA as the methodology and how it relates to operational excellence systems. Christoph will do the demo, and then, as mentioned, we will do the Q&A. And then also, if you're interested how you could proceed after this webinar, we give you some tips how to get started with iObeya and the different options that you have. One question that comes quite often, is this being recorded? Yes, the webinar is being recorded. Still, please do stay in the call so that you have a chance to get your questions answered. Just one slide on where we're coming from, because if you are living outside of the French-speaking world, you may have not heard of iObeya yet. We started actually as a software company, and iObeya as a product was a bespoke software development for PSA, a very large automotive group, which is Stellantis today. Since around 13 years, we are an independent software vendor, but kept this DNA to develop software specifically for clients. So we are very good at listening to client demands and requests. And with the help and input of other large organizations, we were enabling iObeya to support even further use cases. And one of the modules is lean manufacturing for operational excellence. And that's the module that Christoph will show in a bit more detail today. For those of you who have not heard about the term OBEYA, it's actually a whole methodology. And this was made popular by Toyota back then in the 90s when they were developing the world's first hybrid car, the Prius. It was a big race back then between the different automotive groups, and certainly Toyota wanted to win. So they were thinking, okay, how can we really accelerate the whole R&D project? They looked into their toolbox, and what they refined was this OBEYA methodology. So OBEYA is just the Japanese term for big room, but there's much more to it. So in this big room, they put everything on the walls that is relevant for the team to get the job done. Whether it's the mission, the vision, whether it's the Kanban board to visualize your work, whether it's escalations or problem-solving boards, whatever the team needed to run this R&D project and also make critical decisions was in this room. They even had a big prototype of their Prius in this analog room. Now, because also of the Toyota production system, a lot of companies learn from Toyota, including their OBEYA methodology. One of them was PSA, and they had a large number of those rooms in their different facilities and asked us to digitize it for them. Now, this is where we looked at the existing methodology. Again, it's not just a room, it's the whole method around it, and tried to digitize it by keeping this core idea of a team room. And that's what you see here. So in this virtual environment, you enter your Obeya, your virtual Obeya, and see all the different boards on the walls that help you to get the job done. This can be performance management and actions. So that's what Christoph will show you live in his demo part in a minute. But it can also be any other boards like planning boards. It can be Ishikawa diagrams or A3 boards for problem solving. You may want to visualize your work in Kanban boards or program boards, or do retrospective with your team. Now, over the time and also working with our clients, we have collected hundreds of those templates. And in the beginning, when you set up your room for your team and your teams, you look at this gallery and decide what should end up on the walls. And that's something where we certainly support you to pick the right templates, to configure them. And even if your respective and special board is not in this catalog, you can actually bring in your own templates that are fully customized to your needs. Now, there's one crucial part which is missing in this room, which is the team. So at the core of every Obeya room is a team of people. And one of the core concepts is that whoever is in the team, whoever has kind of the virtual key to your team room, sees everything that's on the walls. Now, thanks to the fact that it's digital, we have a lot more possibilities to limit access and give certain people certain roles. Now, this person here might be a core team member who has access to all the boards, who is able to update all the boards, and seen to be a core team member in this team. Another one has read-only permissions, for example, a guest or a top-level executive that you want to give access for transparency, but you don't want them to accidentally mess up anything that's in the room. And then you may have your team of operational excellence experts or lean experts who are working with us in the beginning to set up the room to get started. Another role is that you can invite other colleagues to this room. Again, these are tick boxes in your profile. It can all be in one person's profile, but typically these permissions are shared across different people. Now, this is for one room. That's kind of your Lego brick that you build your visual management system with. What we did in the last 12 years is to evolve this idea of a digital Obeya into a visual management system. What do we mean by a visual management system? Is a system of interconnected team rooms. And you see here, this could be actually a site. Think about your own plant that you're working with or for. We have different tiers, different levels from the site leadership team to the shop floor team. And again, this can be just 2 levels, it can be 5 levels, also depends on the complexity and the size of your entity. Now, again, as a reference, this is an Obeya like this. So these teams all have their own virtual rooms. And to give you some easy examples on what you can do with it, let's say this is a board in your virtual Obeya with something like a roadmap or the 2025 strategy, then this can be shared and cascaded to other teams. So this will be a one-way sharing because you don't want everyone to change your strategy. Then there's other types of boards, which, for example, can be used for ideas and suggestions. Let's say you ask the teams, what possibilities and options do we have to improve process or reduce cost? Now, that's something where every employee can contribute. Everyone can vote on other colleagues' ideas, and then you put a copy of this board into your leadership room for consideration. Now, this is on a board level. And when we were using with two of our large clients, one was Airbus and Sanofi at the time, they both had the same request. They loved our system, but wanted to have more automation in terms of the performance management capabilities. Now, that's what we built as a module. It's a so-called QCD module, but you don't see this as a module. It's seamlessly integrated in your virtual Obeya. And that's what Christoph will show you in a minute. So let's say on the shop floor, you can visualize KPIs which come from other systems, let's say your ERP or MES system. And this can be visualized as performance indicators with red and green or red, amber, green, depending on your lean philosophy. Now, let's say it's a red, it's a deviation. You can create an action, a corrective action with clear accountability. So that's very important. You have now the full transparency and the full accountability on who is in charge of taking care of this action. Now, let's say this team is not able to fix this issue. They can escalate it to any other team in your network. This can be done horizontally or vertically. Let's say it is a complex problem that someone else needs to take care of. The other team, the receiving team, could run a complex solving exercise like a fishbone and then bring back the solution. Now, this is all part of the iObeya system, of the visual management system that you can design. And that's also how we typically start a POC with mapping out your teams, your organizational structure, and also how information is flowing between the different teams. It's not just the escalations, it's also the consolidation. So in this example, it's likely the case that you want to consolidate KPIs across the different tiers, and that can be done across multiple tiers. Now, if this is here one side, your headquarter could be somewhere else, and you have another pyramid that now is also feeding their KPIs to their headquarter. And excuse me for my bad inking here on the slide. Now, that's what we call a visual management system. Again, an interconnected network of team rooms for operational excellence and business agility. So depending of your type of business and also the phase you're in, one is more important than the other. But with iObeya, you can really support both objectives. In a nutshell, you have this virtual room network across your whole organization. So it can start in one site, maybe even in one production line for a POC. But the benefit is, and the peace of mind that you have, for example, organizations like Sanofi run more than 100 plants globally with iObeya. They have 10,000 of users on this platform. So it's really fully scalable, even to the largest organizations that exists. We have multi-layer planning with dependencies. So also if you have project management objectives, you can do this as part of this room network. We talked about the KPI tree that can not only be mapped, but also you can use the same tree for data consolidation and also to navigate along this tree. So if you see a red on a higher level room, you can drill down to the respective team that maybe needs support. Plus the action management. So it's really this end-to-end approach that differentiates iObeya. If you just need a dashboard, iObeya is not the right tool for you. There are a lot of different fantastic dashboarding tools out there. If you really want to have a tool that supports not only the end-to-end process for performance management and action management, but that mimics and digitizes your operational excellence system, your production system, then iObeya is the right choice. Now, before I go over to and hand over to Christoph, I want to show you how this could look like in the real world. This was a LinkedIn post that one of our clients did in Switzerland. They're using it for their daily rituals on the shop floor. They're using it on a large interactive display. So instead of having keyboard and mouse, it's a bit more tactile and a direct interaction with the large screen, which feels a bit more like a real shop floor board. They also put a keyboard in front, so when you need to enter your corrective actions, you don't have to use a on-screen keyboard, which sometimes is a bit clunky, but they can use a normal keyboard. They also put it on a mobile stand, so if your shop floor layout changes, you're flexible with this station as well. What we also see sometimes is a high table, so a kind of bar table style, where you both have the keyboard and mice. So for people who are not keen or comfortable to stand in front at the board, they can also use keyboard and mouse, and you can really have two different modes of input. Talking about input and access to the data, the software from a front-end side runs in a web browser, so you can use it on a tablet, on a laptop, and on any larger device that you have access to. Again, if you should have questions, please make sure you capture them in the chat, and we will take care of them in a minute. So Christoph, over to you. I'll stop sharing and you can take over.
Yeah, thank you, Tobias. All right, everybody can see my screen now. At this moment, we are already in the tool of iObeya. So as Tobias mentioned, you don't need to install any kind of application. The only thing we need is your web browser, the URL for your dedicated platform, and we are in the tool. What you see in front of you on the screen are the boards that we last visited or customized. On the left side, we can find back the rooms that we currently have access to. And in case, in this moment, it's set up in English, but in case you speak a different language or you need a different language on the shop floor, we have 12 languages available at this moment in iObeya. In case your language would not be available in the tool itself, you can always make use of the Google Translate function that can actively translate everything that is on your screen. If I go ahead and I jump into one of the rooms, this takes us right into the iObeya room in a 2D environment. This is for practical reasons, so we can really, in a logical order, flow through the room. To show you another visual on how iObeya is set up, I will go to this board. And actually, iObeya, as mentioned before, it comes from the Japanese word obeya, which means large room. This is actually also how iObeya is set up. So you can compare iObeya to a building. A building has more levels. In this case, we have 3 levels or 3 tiers. In case you need to extend the levels, so in case you need 4, 5, or 6 tiers, we can really extend it as well on a vertical level as on a horizontal level. And in each of these levels or tiers, we have multiple rooms. Each room has several walls, and on each wall we can hang up boards. And these boards can basically depict any kind of visual information that you would like to see, going from our own templates to your templates to maybe embedded content such as Tableau or Power BI or Excel. The rooms in iObeya in the whole network are interconnected. This means that we can share information synchronously with the other rooms on the same level or the levels above. We can consolidate information. So in case, for example, line 1, 2, and 3 are tracking the same KPIs, we can consolidate them into one KPI board, one level higher on the APU level. What we can also do is escalate information. So in case there might be a safety hazard, which is in the example of today, we can see how we are able to escalate it to, for example, the AHS manager who might be sitting at this level. He could take his action and then de-escalate it back to line number 3. If I go to the second board, I will show you an overview of some of the main use cases for visual management. Today, we will focus on SQCDP or QCD in iObeya terms, which is nothing more than the shop floor KPIs. They might look a bit similar like the boards you see here on the right side. The pattern we will follow, or the demo pad of today, is going from line number 3. So basically on the shop floor, we will jump up one level higher to APU 1, and then lastly, we will continue into the leadership team room. If I now double click on this link, it will take us right into the room of line 3. And to give you a different overview, if I click back and then on the mosaic button on the right, we can have at one glance all of the boards that we set up for this fixtures manufacturing plant in line number 3. You can choose however you set up this room. In this case, we chose for intro, line 3, production and equipment. You can name them as you wish, give them a color as you wish, and then make use of our templates. We have over 200 templates available, or you can customize your own templates in PowerPoint, upload them in iObeya, and then actively start working with the tools that we have available. If I now go into the room and I zoom a little bit to make it a bit more visual for you, we can find back some of the different templates we have available. So we have our agenda boards, we have our production scheduling boards, we have the shift handover checklist. We have, for example, a template of the site layout. Let's say this is an example of a customized board. You can input the background, the layout of your site, for example, and then actively start working with some of the tools we have here available. So let's say, for example, for EHS or facility and maintenance, that you notice that you need a repair at this location, you can link it to one of these action cards. If I double click on it and I choose my own as myself as a member and I press on save, you will now find back this little button in the top left. And if I then go to my cards overview, you will see which cards need action and where you are assigned as the owner. If I now double click on it, it will take me right back into that board. If we go to the room a bit more, we can find back the different boards, such as our QCD board. We can find back the problem-solving boards, and also, for example, the checklist board. You can use 5S as a checklist tool as well. We're currently rolling out our Jamba application, so you can use that on the shop floor as well. But let's say we will start with the first board here that we have available that is interactive, which is a volume or the quantity board. This actually shows us the quantities that we have produced over the last 3 shifts in this case. You can choose up to 3 rings around a letter that you might choose that is applicable to the KPI that you would like to track. You can also put any icon in the middle. You can then separate the rings in a way as you prefer. And then per box, you can set up to 10 KPIs that you would like to track. In case something would go wrong, you also have the option to create an action that you can then, for example, escalate. We'll see that in a minute. And if you look on the right side of it, you will find back the different visualizations of the input of the different rings. The input can be done manually. It can be done by dragging in an Excel file in a certain structure, or you can connect it to your ERP system that you can fill out all of the data in an automated way. Now, the data that is put in to the different boxes of the ring can be depicted, for example, in a graph. This is one of the many examples how we can set up these graphs. And in this case, you can find back that the target was 10. We actually produced 9 parts. We had a part scrap. The graphs are basically drag and drop. So when you would drag and drop them into the board, they would be filled out already with the information that has been put into the ring. If you would like to see the actual figures, we can preview this as well. And you can find back the actual parts that have been produced. On the lower part, I have one example of embedded content. In this case, it's an Excel file. And if I press on interact mode, it allows us to, in live time or in real time, navigate to the Excel file. So this is one of the functionalities we have in iObeya to embed content, which makes that we are one tool with all information. So we can really depict everything from different applications. You will not have to open 10 different applications anymore. Look for the right Excel file. We can make sure that everything is in the board as you wish, and then also create a link with a button that could navigate right into the file where you make your updates, and it would be depicted in real time in the iObeya board. If I go a little bit further and I jump into the shop floor KPIs, you can find an overview of the different KPIs we were tracking for this fixtures manufacturing plant. And it might look familiar, but not entirely. And this is because it was a result of a mutual project with Airbus, where we decided to not make use of the safety cross as we are used to, or the pyramid or the upside down pyramid for the PPMs from quality. But we chose to always put the ladder that relates to the to be tracked KPI in the middle, and then surrounded by a ring, which makes it easier to compare the day-to-day for example, safety, quality, delivery, and cost. It looks like a lot of information on this one board, but we also provide these professional services to, together with you, co-create these boards based on best practices from also your own industry. We're working basically in every industry, so we have a lot of knowledge on how to set up these boards in the most visual way for you. If we now start working with one of these letters, for example, safety, and we open the 20th, let's imagine today is the 20th of the month, and we say that there were no near misses today, there was no non-stop work accident, there was no damage, but maybe there was one stop work accident. If I would then click next to the box, I would have to file an action, because in this case, we exceeded one of the targets that then made it that we have to fill it out and take action. So if I press on the blue button here, I can write what happened. Maybe there was a finger pinch. I can then pick a category. We can define them as you wish. We can pick a criticality. We can write a cause, for example, while moving parts in production. I then have to define an owner. In this case, I pick myself. And I need a solution. Let's say need for Pokayoke. So in non-lean terms, it's a foolproof solution that we're looking for, because maybe it happened a few times already and we need more safety material. Then I can pick a due date by when it should be resolved. I can pick a status, a priority, and then I have the option to escalate it. And in this case, I will escalate it one tier higher to the APU1 level, which we will see in a second, and how it ends up at the APU1. And I need to file a reason for escalation. I say need for action, exclamation mark. I can now also create an action card. And when I press on save, you will see that several things will happen on the board. The 20th of today, the imaginary today, has become red. We have one open action, which is another visual trigger that we need to do something today. We have this action card that has been created. We will work with that in a second. We have another added action to the open action list on the bottom of the screen. And then if you go all the way to the right, we can also find back in the escalated actions to the higher levels or higher tiers that the finger pinch has been added. Now, why did I create this action card? Let's say this happened and it's the third time this week or this month that we have a finger pinch and we would like to start problem solving. I can grab this card, and below you will see we have the exchange zone. If I drag and drop it in the exchange zone, and let's say I set up an Ishikawa board in the continuous improvement part, I can then go back to the exchange zone and I can drag and drop the action cards out of it and put it on the head of the fishbone. Now, what I can do now is start a problem-solving session. Therefore, we have these functionalities for brainstorming, for voting, and guided navigation that basically grabs everybody who is available into the room, into this one board, and then we can start problem solving. Now, any update that will happen into this card or this open action, even from the levels above, from APU1, will be automatically updated into the card, and therefore you see this little green dot in the top corner. This means that it's a synchronized card, so it's synchronized to input that will come from somewhere else. I have different options with this card. For example, instead of putting it into exchange zone, which allows me to use it on different boards within the same room, I can also manage the card, and I can also send a synchronized copy. This might be the case, for example, if somebody does not have access to this particular room, but he needs to be updated on his card. If I click on send synchronized copy, I can choose a recipient. If I pick myself, for example, and I press on save, then you will see that now there is an inbox, and in the inbox, I have the card as well. So there are multiple functionalities with these synchronized cards, and whenever there's some change anywhere in one of the synchronized copies, it will be depicted in all of the cards that are synchronized. Now, if you jump up one level higher to APU1, and just to make it clear once more, we were at line number 3 and we jumped up one tier to APU1. If I click one step back and I go back into the mosaic overview, we can find back the boards that have been set up for this level for APU1. Some of the boards you might recognize, they're the same boards, but with different information. In this case, it's consolidated information from all of the underlying lines, but we will also find back some other boards, which we will see when we scroll through the room. For example, for continuous improvement, we have the value stream mapping, which is quite handy. Therefore, you can start with a whiteboard, and then we have all of the different icons available. So you can create your actual state and then also your future state. Therefore, we also have the data sets that you can fill out and really track your progress. We have the different, if I go like this, we have other boards available, such as the different phases for demake. Very nice functionality there is, if I go into one of these boards, we can create a planning actually per phase that we're completing. Right here we have the define action, for example. If you say this one is finished, we can then change the type into, for example, resolved, on track, not started, etc. What's important there is that we can create card collections, and this allows us to break very strategical or high-level goals or phases down all the way to functional teams, so we can always track back, maybe even from one tier higher, which actions are being taken in order to complete the phase, in this case, the define phase. If I go through the room, and lastly, here we have an example of a Hoshinkanri. It works in a similar way, so we can define very strategical high-level goals and then create these card collections that break it down all the way to the, let's say, lowest tier. If I go into the shop floor KPIs once more, I will show you how we can consolidate information. That's what I do with this little washing machine on the left side. So if I press on it and I click on consolidation and I launch the update, you will see where my cursor is that the 20th becomes red. I will zoom in a second. The 20th has become red, and you can imagine as a EHS manager at this level, you might ask yourself, where did the accident take place? We can see there was one stop work accident. If I now click on the little consolidation button, I can find back that the accident happened in line number 3. So even if I'm 5 tiers higher, we are so transparent, I would say, and we can find back the information in such a detailed way that we can always find back where an incident happened, where the bad quality was, where we had a delay, maybe on one of the lines, or any kind of KPI that we'd like to track. The transparency becomes complete all the way from the highest level to the lowest connected level. Next to it, you will find some examples of different depictions of the graphs. So we saw one example before with the volume board. You can basically set them up as you wish, or whatever your requirements are for your company. And then if you go back to the escalation list, you can find the escalation from tier 1 now on tier 2, which is a finger pinch. And let's say I open the action, and right now I'm the EHS manager, and I say to be reviewed during CI meeting. If I now press on save, it will turn green and de-escalate and be removed from our open action list. And now it's de-escalated 1 tier down to line number 3, and as well updated in the Ishikawa and all of the cards that have been synchronized. Lastly, if I go to the upper level, the plant leadership team room, and I go back into the mosaic overview, you can find back some of the same boards that are the same, some different boards. You will see the Hoshinkanri once more, but now there are a lot of boards that focus really on the balance sheet, on the P&L, very strategical boards that the plant leadership team needs to review, maybe not on a daily or a weekly base, but maybe on a monthly base. If I now go back into the room and I zoom a little bit, we can find back this performance review of the shop floor KPIs. If I click on it, it takes me right into the room. I can then once more do the consolidation, launch the consolidation. And as you see, where my cursor is right now, it's now making the calculation to update all of the letters. The 20th has become red once more. In a similar way, I can find back it comes from line number 3. And on the right side, you can find back the escalations that came up from tier number 2, from tier 2. And what's interesting also is this example of embedded content all the way on the bottom of the board. In this case, it's not an Excel, but it's a Power BI. As mentioned, any content that is embeddable can be embedded. And in this case, it's Power BI, where I can then navigate in real time into the file, the Power BI. One last thing I would like to show you is, because we discussed the many templates we have available, if you click on the board background catalog, you will find back over 200 templates that we have available in our library. For example, for decision making, for performance management, for problem solving. You can either scroll through the list, or you can start writing something in the field above, and then basically with one click on a button, you could apply it, and it becomes a new background of your your iObeya board. That's it in a nutshell for the demo based on the shop floor KPIs. I guess we can now go into the potential questions that came up during the.
Yes, thank you very much, Christoph. If you could still share your screen, because we had a question coming up from Alexei. He asked about the what are the three rows inside the circles. So there are three circles around a letter on the QCD board. Yes.
Yeah.
In this case, we have one. There's one with two. Can you
I
please
can go to
elaborate on
the
those?
one with the three. I will go on the line number 3, where I showed it the first time. So the question was, why do we have 3 circles around it?
Yes. What can we do with the 3 circles?
Yeah, so in this case, we have a night shift, a morning shift, and an afternoon shift, and we decided to track the same KPIs for each one of the shifts. And then per shift, you can set up to 10 KPIs that you would like to track. So that's how it's defined here. We have one, let's say, from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Here is one from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Here's one from 8 to 9 in the morning. So it's 3 different shifts.
Excellent, thank you. And good to know is that on each of those circles, you can have up to 10 indicators that will combine up to one evaluation. In this case, we have 3 on those circles. Then also, how customizable is iObeya's solution? So as we've shown, there are a number of templates already available. There's the whole data set that's available. And here we're looking at QCD. We have the ability to, or you have the ability as a user to configure that to your use. You have full control over the background image. While there is a catalog, you can provide your own background images to match the process that you want to model. So here we have the ability to select a different background image, and we also, of course, have the catalog. Furthermore, around the tool dock, that's all of the tools that you have available at the bottom of the screen. You can modify those. Some of those are pre-configured, but you can choose them from a catalog of iObeya and then make the modifications to those to match the terminology that you're using in your organization. Now, of course, an important question as well is how do you control access to a room? So for us, the answer is partly in that question as well, in the sense that we control access to the room based on a room level, very similar to as you're entering a room in a building. If you have the key to the room, then you have the ability to step into the room and take a look around. Now, there's a number of levels of access that you have inside of a room. One is that you can just step into the room and basically have your hands in your pockets and just take a look around and see what's in there. Next level up is that you have the ability to make changes, making use of the tools that are available on the platform and make modifications and drag those to the board. And then the third level is that you actually have the ability to also make changes to the tool dock itself, make change to the type of tools that you have, all the users have available on that room to collaborate with, as well as change the background. Now, last question I received was, what are the integrations that are available? So we have a number of integrations available out of the box. So we have an integration available with Jira and Azure DevOps. Those are bidirectional integrations. Furthermore, we also have an open REST-based API that allow you to integrate with any of your applications that you already have available. iObeya does not exist in an information vacuum, of course, so it's important that to flow all of that information into a single system. Now you have the choice to either do that on a data integration level or on an information integration level. And what we mean with that is a data integration is really when you're flowing the data from one system to another, such as, for instance, if you look at this from a QCD perspective, you have the ability to actually import those numbers from another source system and make sure that that information is then becoming available in those QCD letters, and you can use that to manipulate them and build graphs and so on. Similarly, in the integration with Jira and Azure DevOps, it's where you have the data available both in iObeya as well as in the other system, and any change that's happening in one system affects the other as well. So that's all on the data integration perspective. The other thing that Christoph showed is more of an information integration, where you have an application such as either anything in the Microsoft suite, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, or even something like a Power BI, and you could put that kind of content on your board. It will be feeding that information live into the same context of that board, but the data will remain in the source system. Now, the good thing here is that you still maintain the same level of access control as you have on the source system. So we could, Christoph and I could be from the same team. We could be looking at this. If I don't have access to that report, then I would not see the information right here. But as we need to collaborate, and Christoph has access, he could show that, and he has that information available here. So it is a different way of looking at integration. It is a very lightweight way of integrating, just to make sure that everyone on the team has the information available all together in one context. Now, you also have more information available, of course, on our website, and you can find it at www.iobeya.com. And I'll hand it back to Tobias.
Yeah, thank you, Christoph. Thank you, Olav, for all these information. That's great. We don't want to go over time. We might be the ones that stand between you and a long weekend. We know in some countries it's a long Easter weekend, so we don't want to delay it too much. But team marketing, if you could bring up my slide for a second, I just want to show you how you can and where you can learn more. One is certainly that you get in touch directly with our team. So I'm just sharing my email address here, and also if you scan the QR code on the left-hand side, you can get in touch with me via LinkedIn. Both Olav and Christoph are on LinkedIn as well. We all have pretty unique names, so you should be able to find us there. The other option is if you say, well, I'd like to get a one-on-one demo. We made it very easy to just pick a date, pick a time slot, and get your demo scheduled directly in your calendar. And from there, I'm very happy to also set you up with a free trial, or if you're ready to go to a proof of concept, POC, then we can certainly also start that discussion and pick the right site and the right use cases. And typically it takes 2, maximum 3 months to run a full POC. So at the end, you have all the information and data that you need to make a go, no-go decision. With this, I say thanks very much for your time. We are pretty much on time today. I think that's also important. Let's stay in touch. It would be great to keep in touch, and then maybe see you in another one-on-one call. Thanks, and for those of you who celebrate Easter, have a nice long Easter weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well.